This was my apartment 9 years ago. Actually, apartment is an overstatement. It was a living room with a curtain for a wall. Roaches were everywhere as if they owned the place. I had exactly $3,000 left. My student visa was ticking down, and I've just made the most stupid decision of my life. I canceled every single job interview I had for one company, McKinsey or bust. If I didn't get this job, I was literally packing my bags and leaving America forever. This is the story of how I went from eating instant noodles in Jersey City to working at one of the world's most prestigious companies. And no, this isn't some motivational bullshit. This is about what really happens when you have no choice but to succeed. What's up everyone, I'm Terry. Look, I know the job market right now is absolutely brutal. Tech layoffs everywhere, AI supposedly taking over our jobs, and every entry-level position somehow requires 5 years of experience. I'm not here to tell you that it's easy. I'm not going to pretend I have some magic formula. But what I can share is what happened when I hit absolute rock bottom and the specific tactics that pulled me out. Because here's the thing that nobody tells you about desperation. Sometimes it's exactly what you need. Picture this. 2016, I'm 22 years old, fresh out of university with a master's in mathematical finance. I thought I was some hot shit. I mean, I could price derivatives. I know stochastic calculus. Surely Wall Street would be throwing money at me, right? Wrong. I was so wrong. Let me paint you the full picture of just how bad things were. The apartment in Jersey City, $850 a month, and I was still struggling to afford it. It was a 3-bedroom unit where the living room had been converted into a 4th bedroom. My room was separated by a shower curtain, not even a real wall. The roaches were so bad that I'd wake up with them crawling on my bed. I'm not even exaggerating. Every morning, I'd check my bank account. $3,000, $2,800, $2,500, watching it drain away like sand through my fingers. My parents back in China, they'd already taken out loans for my education. Asking them for more money wasn't just embarrassing, it was impossible. My daily meal plan was strategic poverty. Skip breakfast, 7-Eleven pizza for lunch, instant noodles for dinner. Sometimes I'd go to networking events just for the free food. Meanwhile, I'm sending out resumes like my life depends on it. Because it literally did. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, every hedge fund in Manhattan. I'm talking about 200 plus applications. You know how many responses I got? 4 interviews out of 200 plus applications, and I was bombing them hard. One interviewer at a hedge fund asked me to derive the Black-Scholes equation on the whiteboard. I knew it. I've studied it for a month, but I was standing there, marker in hand. My mind went completely blank. I literally drew a circle and just stood there. Another interview, they asked why I wanted to work in finance. You know my brilliant and honest answer? I like math and money. The interviewer's face was so funny. I've never seen someone trying so hard not to laugh. Then, December 19th, 2016, I'm sitting in my office chair, scrolling through emails, mostly rejections, but buried between "thank you for your interest" and "we've decided to move forward with other candidates" was this one. Dear Terry, thank you for attending our campus presentation. We'd like to discuss your background further for an analyst position. Best regards, McKinsey Company. I stared at that email for probably 10 minutes. McKinsey? The McKinsey? I'd gone to some random campus event weeks ago. I dropped my resume and honestly forgot about it. They weren't even recruiting for quants. This was for their consulting track. And I can't explain why, something in my brain just clicked. This wasn't just another interview. This was the interview. This was my shot. What I did next was either the most stupid or the smartest thing I'd ever done. I had interviews lined up, a final round with TD Bank, a second round with Ernst & Young, another second round with John Hancock. These were real opportunities in finance, what I had been trained for, but I canceled them all. My roommate thought I'd lost my mind. He said, "Dude, you're canceling all these interviews for one HR interview at a company you know nothing about?" But here's what he didn't understand, what nobody understood. When you're drowning, you don't grab onto 5 different life preservers. You grab the strongest one and hold on for dear life. From that moment, my life became McKinsey, and I mean that literally. Here was my schedule. 5:30 a.m., wake up, no alarm needed. Anxiety was hell of a motivator. 6 a.m., first case on the day. I'd stand in front of the mirror and present to myself. 8 a.m., Panera Bread opens. I'd buy 1 coffee for $2.19 and then drink it slowly for the next 12 hours. And then 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., cases. I'm talking about 15 to 20 cases per day. Market entry for a Pakistani textile manufacturer. Profitability turnaround for a German auto parts supplier. M&A strategy for a biotech firm. I did them all. But here's the obsessive part. I recorded everything. My phone was filled with recordings of me solving cases. And every night, I'd watch them back like game replays. Why did you take 30 seconds to structure that? Should have been 20. Your math was right, but you stumbled explaining it. Again, stop saying just pause instead. I was brutal with myself because I knew they would be really brutal with me. 2 weeks in, I lost 10 pounds, not from working out, but from forgetting to eat. My eyes were so bloody from staring at casebooks that people at Panera Bread started asking me if I was okay. 3 weeks in, I'm practicing cases in my sleep. By week 4, I wasn't preparing to interview at McKinsey. I was preparing to be McKinsey, or McKinsey. Just kidding, I've never heard of anyone say that. Then comes February 17th, 2015, interview day. They offered to put me up at the Omni Hotel, even though Jersey City was just across the river. That room was nicer than anywhere I'd lived in 2 years. Before departure, I remember standing in that marble bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror that wasn't cracked, wearing my one and only suit, which is a $200 Macy's special. Here's something nobody tells you about high-stake moments. Time moves differently. That morning felt like it lasted a whole week. Every detail is still crystal clear. The doorman who said, "Good luck today, sir." How did he know? The taxi driver who told me his daughter just got into Colombia. The receptionist at McKinsey who offered me water 3 times because I looked so nervous. Walking into the office alone was intimidating. There was glass and dark stone everywhere. People in suits walking with purpose. And then there's me, trying not to sweat through my discount shirt. The first interview was with a partner from Columbia Business School. And the case is something like help a global prestigious cosmetics company explore new ways to attract customers. The moment he finished speaking, something weird happened. All that anxiety, all that fear, it just vanished. Because I'd done this case. Not exactly, but close enough. My mouth opened and the solution just flowed. 45 minutes later, I'd not only solved the case, but suggested the ROI calculations for these approaches that he hadn't even asked for. With the first interview going so well, the rest of the interviews basically followed a similar pattern, except that I wasn't nervous anymore. I discussed these problems with partners as if I already worked with the client. By the time I walked out of that building, I was completely empty. Every ounce of energy, every bit of preparation, every neuron in my brain spent. I fell asleep on the taxi ride back to Jersey City, woke up at my destination with drooling on my suit. The driver had to shake me to wake me up. Then I went back to my curtained room and completely collapsed on my air mattress. And for the first time in months, I slept without anxiety, without any thoughts at all. The next day, 11 a.m., I was woken up by a phone call. It was a partner that I met yesterday, calling me to offer me a role at the firm. I said thank you politely, kept it very professional, hang up. And then I absolutely lost it. I'm talking about ugly crying, the kind where you can't breathe. All that pressure, all that fear, all those nights wondering if I have to call my parents and admit failure, gone in one phone call. I called my mom. It was midnight in China and she answered right away. She always did during that period, worried that I'd be calling them with bad news. She started crying too. And then my dad got on the phone trying to sound stoic, but his voice was cracking. These people who'd mortgaged their future for my education, who'd believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. That was the moment. It was the moment that made every roach, every skipped meal, every 16-hour day worth it. And that is how I started my career journey. Fast forward to today, 9 years later, after McKinsey led to data science roles at Snap, LinkedIn, and other tech companies, let me break down what I've learned. Lesson 1 is you never know what life has planned for you, so stay ready. Here's something wild. I spent 2 years and $100,000 preparing to be a quant. 2 years of stochastic calculus, derivatives pricing, all Greeks. And you know what? Not a single minute of that was wasted, even though I never became a quant. Here's a famous military quote. Plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. It means the act of planning, the discipline, the skills, and the mental models you develop. That's what saves you when life throws you a curveball. All those hours grinding through probability theory taught me how to break down complex problems. Those brutal exams trained me to perform under pressure. Learning to code pricing models gave me the technical foundation I later used in data science. The McKinsey opportunity worked because I was prepared, just not in the way I expected. My quant training didn't get me a quant job. It gave me something better, the ability to learn anything, quickly, under pressure. But here's the kicker. If I'd been rigid about my plan, if I'd said, I'm a quant or nothing, I would have ignored that McKinsey email. Consulting? That's not in my plan. Think about that. The entire trajectory of my career, McKinsey, Snap, LinkedIn, and this YouTube channel that you're watching, none of this would exist if I stubbornly stick to my original plan. Lesson 2 is to control the controllables and go absolutely nuts on them. Let me be very honest about my chances at McKinsey. As an international student from non-target school, no MBA, no business background, no consulting internships, no case competition wins. Hell, I didn't even know what EBITDA means. You know what the acceptance rate would be for someone like me? Probably less than 1%. Every night during my prep, this voice in my head would whisper, you're wasting your time. They'll never pick you. You're not an MBA. You're not even American. Go back to your quant interviews. That voice was probably right. The odds were impossible. My background was wrong. I didn't fit the profile. But here's what I realized. None of that was in my control. My passport, I can't change it. My school, I already graduated. My past experience, there's no time machine. So I made a decision. I would control what I could control with such intensity, such obsessive focus that it would overwhelm everything else I couldn't control. What could I control? My preparation. And I didn't just prepare. I prepared like I was possessed by a case study machine. I couldn't control whether they'd give me an offer, but I could control being the most prepared candidate who ever walked through those doors. Here's what most people do wrong. They spend 80% of their mental energy worrying about things they can't control. What if they don't sponsor visas? What if they want someone with experience? What if? All that energy is wasted. It's worse than wasted. It's destructive. It paralyzes you. Instead, you should take all that anxiety about things you can't control and channel it into absolute domination of what you can control. Can't control if they will interview you? Control having the best damn resume they've ever seen and the number of applications you send out. Can't control their biases? Control being so prepared that bias becomes irrelevant. Because here's the truth. When you go nuts on what you can control, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it becomes enough to overcome everything you can't control. And last lesson is to make necessary trade-offs when necessary. Your future self will thank you. This is the part about sacrifice that nobody wants to talk about. It's not just giving up the obvious things like Netflix or parties. It's giving up good things, important things, things that actually matter. During those 8 weeks, here's what I gave up. My gym routine, 3 years of progress, gone. Watching my muscles disappear was brutal for my ego. Dating. I canceled 3 dates with someone I really liked and we never spoke again. Family calls. Told my parents that I'd call after my interview. My mom thought something was wrong. And friend gatherings. I basically disappeared from my social group for those 2 months. But here's the critical part. I knew it was temporary. This wasn't my new lifestyle. It was an 8-week sprint where every hour mattered. Think of it like this. If someone offered you a deal, give up everything for 2 months, but potentially change your entire career trajectory, would you take it? Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's toxic. That's unhealthy. What about work-life balance? And you're right. It is unhealthy if it is permanent. But sometimes life presents you with narrow windows where temporary imbalance creates permanent results. An Olympic athlete doesn't train with balance 3 months before the Olympics. A medical student doesn't study with balance the month before the board exam. And when you're an international student with $3,000 left and one shot at staying in America, balance is a luxury that I couldn't afford. The key word here is necessary. Not every interview deserves this level of sacrifice. Not every opportunity requires you to become a hermit. But when you identify the opportunity, the one that could change everything, that's when you make the hard choices. But how do you know which opportunity deserves this? Ask yourself, will I regret not giving this everything I have? Is this opportunity genuinely rare or time sensitive? And can I recover what I'm sacrificing after this is over? Here's my challenge to you. Stop treating every opportunity with the same level of intensity. Most things deserve your B+ effort, but once or twice in your career, something comes along that deserves your A++ effort. The kind of effort that requires real sacrifice. When that moment comes, and you'll know when it does, be willing to make the trade-offs. Your social life will recover. Your gym routine will return. Your friends, if they're real friends, will also understand. But the opportunity, that might never come again. So I did go back to China after getting that offer, but for Chinese New Year this time. I printed out that McKinsey offer letter and my whole family was hugging and congratulating me, even though none of them could understand English. And that night, in my childhood bedroom, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in months, safe. I know you might be in your own version of that Jersey City apartment. Maybe you're down to your last $1,000. Maybe you're on interview number 50 with no offers. Maybe you're thinking about giving up. I can't promise that you'll get your McKinsey moment. I can't promise the next interview will be the one. But I can promise you this. The person you become when you have no choice but to succeed, that person is unstoppable. That person is who you are. Your breakthrough might not look like mine. It might not be McKinsey or Google or whatever name brand company you're chasing. It might be a startup nobody's heard of that becomes the next unicorn. It might be a role that doesn't even exist yet. But if you're willing to go all in, something will break your way. Because here's the secret. Most people aren't willing to be temporarily insane to be permanently successful. Most people aren't willing to bet everything on themselves. But you watched a 20-minute video about a desperate graduate student who went all in. That tells me you're not most people. Your Jersey City moment, whatever that looks like, is temporary. Your breakthrough is coming. Keep preparing, keep believing, and keep pushing. And when you do get that call, when you finally make it, do me a favor. Find another desperate dreamer and tell them your story. Alright, I'm Terry. If this resonated with you, subscribe and like the video so more people can see it. Drop a comment with your own comeback story. I would love to read them. Peace.